Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Collective. Today I have joining me my wife, and if you hear animalistic noises, primal, instinctive sounds coming from under the covers, it's our pug, Curly, also joining us. And I'm very excited. I'll give her a debut. Hi, Curly. Wave to the cameras or go back into hiding. So, this podcast is going to be coming out around Valentine's Day, and I thought who better than my lovely wife to discuss some key aspects of relationships, not because we have all the wisdom, not because we have all of the answers or figured everything out, but perhaps to share some value from our own relationships and experiences with relationships to help potential people in the audience who are looking for relationships, maybe in a romantic light, maybe a friendship light, and kind of spanning the whole gambit. So the first question I have is, there's this concept of knowing and being known. In your mind, what is it to be known by somebody?
Okay. I feel like to be known by somebody is to fully feel yourself around somebody. For somebody to be able to know how you think before you say it, or I feel like especially in a relationship or even in a friendship, the longer you're around somebody, the more you get to know them, and fully being known is being accepted and loved for who you are inside and out, and not just the surface level of what people see day to day, but who you are behind closed doors when nobody else other than that person would see.
Gotcha. No, I think that's a great answer. I think it implies, the word know has the knowledge of, or I think what you're saying is just even a layer deeper is the experience of.
Yeah.
So the more you experience life and relationship with somebody, whether that's a friendship, romantic relationship, a marriage, parental type of familial relationship, we get to experience one another, and by virtue of that we get to know, because I could describe you to people, but until they see your beauty, until they see your radiance, hear your laugh, see your smile, hear your bluntness and your truth telling, they won't understand to the knowledge and the extent that I do, because I know you. And so I think also, with regards to what you were saying, it's a good thing to recognize that being known is being accepted for who you are, all of your flaws, all of your misgivings and shortcomings. And I think that's a really good way to start things off. So I'll transition to the next one, unless you have more to say on that.
I think it's pretty simple.
Okay. What have you learned from past relationships? That can be romantic, it can be familial, it can be friendships.
I mean, there's a lot to learn from different dynamics of relationships. I think in a friendship setting, I've learned that friendships can very much be seasonal.
Sometimes in relationships, things just fall out. Right?
I think I used to, when I was younger, think that friendships lasted forever, and the reality of it is people grow apart in different seasons. I'm different in who I am today than I was 5 years ago. When we got married, and people wouldn't fit in my life now that fit in my life at that point. So I think it's taught me to be flexible in my relationships and friendships with people. not relationships really, but mainly friendships in that aspect. I try to like dig deep in my relationships while I'm in them, but also be okay if the season comes where that friendship is just more distant. I wouldn't say I've ever lost friends, but I'm definitely not as close to people as I used to be in this season of life. And I would say I learned a lot about who I am, especially in my past relationships, and like finding my identity in those relationships and what that person thought about me, and not what the Lord thought about me or who I was. Like, I didn't know who I was, you know? I mean, even in our marriage, I've changed a lot. But I used to really let people walk all over me and be okay with it. And I think going through really hard relationships taught me a lot about what I wanted in a future spouse, and taught me a lot about who I was and what I didn't want to stand for. I also think that just like growing up, and the older you get, the more comfortable you get in your own skin. Like, at least in my life, that's been the case, where the older I get, the more I'm like, I just really don't care, or I don't have time for people who don't want to accept me for who I am, or want to get to know me for who I am, you know? Yeah, I think you can learn a lot in relationships and friendships if you're willing to take the hard lessons and apply it to your life. But I also don't, I think when I was younger, I was the person who always felt, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I was the problem, or like, yeah, like I was at fault, or I don't know, I held on to things more, and I try to not do that now. Like, no, it's okay. You know, everyone makes mistakes, things happen, and it's okay to move on past them and continue on. You know, I don't try to hold on to anything negative, because it's not healthy for me. You know, I don't, what is the word I'm looking for? Complain about my situations, or I try not to complain about my situations.
Yeah.
I do complain about my situations sometimes, but like to you, but that's different, you know, you're my spouse. Like, but I don't just complain or try to put myself in like I'm the victim. Take ownership and move on. I think I've learned that in my relationships and friendships with people. Hey.
What about your relationship with Kayla?
I knew you were going to ask that.
What have you learned?
I have learned patience.
Yeah, or at least attempting to be patient, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I'm sorry, did you have more to say?
No, I was waiting for you.
Oh, I just think it's interesting when we reflect on past relationships and interactions with people, the things that we do learn. You know, Matthew McConaughey talks about this sense of the future being a mystery, but when you look back, it seems mathematical. Like, it was all placed to be that way in a particular sense. And I know for myself, similar to you, I think we both struggled with, and I make the joke that I'm a recovering chronic people pleaser. I think we both struggled with that. I think we were brought up in certain cultural norms that had narratives, whether meant to or not, had some unwanted intentions that could have led people to assume that saying yes all the time was the answer.
Was the right thing.
To have deep relationships. Yeah. Because you're supposed to be the servant of all. You're supposed to be a willing servant.
Yeah.
And how detrimental that was, at least for my sense of self-belief, confidence, and assurance that I was doing the right things.
Yeah.
Because I always felt like I was crippled by this insecurity of I'm not enough, I don't measure up, I'm constantly falling short in every regard.
Mm-hmm.
And that being held over your head, and it's like, what does that produce except the victim mentality?
Yeah.
Except I'm bound to this forever and I can never overcome it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that, and looking back, how easy it was for me to, at the slightest glimmer of hope, hold on at all costs.
Yeah.
Because of fear of losing something.
For sure.
Because of fear of my own inadequacies.
Yeah.
As well.
I think there's a genuine, I don't know if I'll ever be good enough for somebody. So, like, I have to hold on to this with everything I have because who knows? Or I don't think, like, I genuinely never thought I would find somebody who loved and accepted me fully for who I was. So I would settle in relationships for men who, like, even saw me a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Like, they knew how to reel me in and make me feel like they got me, but really they were trying to change me.
Yeah.
And so, but I stayed in those relationships for way too long, and yeah, I mean, but it led me to, so it's okay.
Yeah. You'd buy yourself coffee. And take yourself out for a good time. I mean, I know that's like a weird reframe, but you know, the whole like, do you deserve the person that you have?
Yeah.
Do you earn the person that you have? It's like, fundamentally, I don't think that frame is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Because you could still do the things that get the person, so to speak.
Yeah.
And deep down still be a dirtbag.
Yeah.
Or you could be the person who's striving to be the best they can possibly be.
Yeah.
And somebody who mutually wants to walk in that path of excellence joins you in that. Then in either situation, did somebody earn something, or was it just what we talked about? I desire to know you. I desire to experience you. I desire to trust you, to get to know you, to recognize that you're infinitely deep and that there's a lot of treasure to dig out of you and to learn more of who you are.
Yeah.
You know, and when you make that commitment, that's the shift. I think that we set the standard for ourselves, and then when we meet people, because we're comfortable in that standard, we're able to, no matter what happens with that person, whether it goes deeper or it doesn't, then we're still good, because it's like we set the standard for ourselves.
Yeah.
We're not going to be people who are lack of commitment or wishy-washy. We want to be solid and firm and loyal and trustworthy.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I think it's hard at first when those relationships or friendships end to let go of it, but I think eventually you get there, you know. And I think the older I get, the more I realize, like, I have to be flexible in my situations, because nothing is what we think it is, you know?
Yep.
Like, nothing's gonna happen the way we assume it's gonna happen or we want it to happen. That's just not real life.
Yeah.
So, like, friendships come and go, people come and go out of your life, and that's okay, you know? And it's not even always out of an ill will. And I think that's a false narrative that it is, you know? Like, oh, did I do something wrong? It's like, sometimes people just move on in life and you're stuck in a place, or you've moved on already to something new, you know?
Exactly. It's the whole, the biggest reframe that I took away from last year, I think, that helped me through a lot with relationships or just with failing, was no failures, just progressions.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's just a progression, then you win, because at the end of the day, if you understand that person fully, you would forgive them. If you knew everything about them and their dynamic and situation, understanding is forgiving.
Yeah.
But on your side, you can just say, well, as far as people that I aspire to be like, I learned what to do or what not to do from that person.
Yeah.
And I learned more about myself and how I can grow and mature and change.
And even if it is, oh, well, like, there's two sides to every story. And I tried to remember that in my life, too. Like, that doesn't just apply to other people's situations. It applies to mine, too. You know, so I may not understand why somebody did something or whatever. And I know I struggle with people being upset with me, or like the people pleasing in me like wants to be okay with everybody at all times. But I also have grown in that aspect of my life. I also recognize that person's coming from their point of view too. And so although it's not always easy at the front end of it,
Yeah.
like, both people have a point of view that they think is right. And most likely, neither of us are fully right, you know? So.
Yeah, and for the people pleasers in the room, remember that the mechanism by which you make decisions isn't people's expectations of you. It can't be the same thing, because even if you give into those expectations, you're making the decision to do that. And so, if you struggle with people pleasing, all you can fundamentally do is control your actions and your reactions. And so if you have a higher standard for yourself of the type of person you want to be or would like to have somebody treat you, then, you know, it's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a loss. It's just a learning. And that person, frankly, wants to miss out, then okay. You know, it's like, you can still wish the best for them. You can still wish for them to win. As crazy as that might sound. They don't have to be your sworn nemesis and enemy. But that doesn't mean you have to continue down a path if it's not healthy.
Yeah.
And I think for the longest time, that's also something that I wrestled with. For me, it was never relationships, it was always potentials.
Yeah.
As far as the romantic side. And so talking about that glimmer of hope like I was earlier, I was a hopeless romantic, and probably still am in a lot of ways. But the idea of what it could be, the idea of what I could have with said person I was interested in at the time, or whatever that might look like. Looking back on it now, I was so wrapped up in what others thought of me that I wasn't able to be, I would say, more grounded in the ways that I needed to be.
Yeah.
But
I think that's most people.
Yeah, and it's all hindsight at this point. So trickling from that, unless you have more or would like to say more on that, learning from past relationships, what are 3 key qualities to a healthy relationship in general?
3 key qualities to a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Communication, obviously. Communication's key in everything. It will not work. A firm foundation on the Lord. Constantly working at that being at the center of your relationship. I mean, I don't know how anybody could do it without the Lord. I know there are people who have relationships out there without the Lord, but that's not a relationship I want to be a part of. What was the question again?
Yeah, what are 3 key qualities to a healthy relationship?
Okay. Yeah, so communication, the Lord, and then I think just willingness to serve the other person. Like, it's not about you, it's about us, you know? And I think it can't just be a one person doing everything. It has to be 2 people fully working at it together at all times, even when it's hard and it feels impossible. Like, you have each other, and that's the key. And I think all of those things really do apply for relationships and friendships. Obviously, the Lord being in your life, in my opinion, is always better. But in friendships, I would definitely be friends with somebody who wasn't a believer, but in a relationship, that's different, you know?
Yeah, romantically, because, well, it just goes to one of my points, and so I'll just jump right into it, is aligned vision. Like, you both are walking a path together. You're building something. Marriage isn't just the ideal, like, crack on and live forever romance novel that you might think of. It's aspiring to both have yourselves orienting and aligning yourselves to the same thing.
Yeah.
And to mutually agree to that exclusively for one another only. And I like how Josh Nadeau puts a lot of things in the world are shadows and God is the substance. And I think it's the same with marriage. We are a mirroring of what is supposed to be reflected. Ultimately, we are not the source, but we are a reflection or an embodiment, or to use the biblical language, an incarnation, if you will, of what it looks like to be devoted to Christ and to set that standard for our relationship and what that looks like on a day-to-day and in the dynamics of the relationship. And that goes to the fundamental thing that I tried to bring to the table and that I would say you also agreed with, which was communication.
Yeah.
And maybe it was different ways of going about that initially. Yeah. You know, you driving 2 minutes across the street to work and me being like, did you make it okay? You know, I know that was different for you.
It's just learning curves.
And it's preferences, right? And that was, you know, us learning our dynamic as well.
Yeah.
But communication has been an ongoing thing since day one with each other. And that stream of continuing line of communication, I think, is so crucial.
Yeah.
You know, even when you're at work or I'm at work, even if we can't get back to the phone right away, we always try to make an intentional effort to let the other person know, like, I hear you.
Yeah.
Like, I understand. Or if I don't, clarify for me. And I think communication is fundamentally the root of all good qualities in relationships stems from having agreed upon expectations of each other. Is a better way of saying it, maybe. And then the other one that I have with aligned vision and communication is brutal honesty. And I mean brutal sometimes because you don't always want to hear it, but you have the person in your life that you trust the most, that you've been most vulnerable to, all of your flaws, all of your strengths, who has a sober-minded view of you and an outside view of you, to where on both sides you can just be like, here's the deal. This is what I'm really feeling in this moment, if it's emotional, or here's what I'm thinking, if it's logical. And I don't think you can go wrong with brutal honesty, because even if in the moment it's tense, what would you rather have done? Have the person lie to you?
Yeah.
And it's something I'm still working on, trying to do it in a less abrasive way that I could, but still keep the principle alive. Like, it's so crucial to be just tell you what I think the first time instead of dancing around it somehow or telling you what's up.
Yeah.
And I know that goes both ways on that. So
makes for better communication.
Yes, it does. And make sure that we're still oriented and aligned in our vision. So without necessarily having to extrapolate all the details, I wanted to give the audience a brief synopsis of our story.
Okay.
So let's do it this way. I'll have you go ahead and start on your end. And then if things come about to where I feel I need to insert a detail, I will do so. But otherwise, you have the floor.
Am I talking about, like, from when we met to now?
Yeah. So just let's well, maybe not till now. Let's do dating till marriage.
Beginning of dating.
No. First time we met.
Okay.
To marriage. Okay. I'm sorry.
Because those are two different things.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so we met at the beach.
Yeah, we did.
But really because of Bible college, and I was going with a group of girls. I mean, I went to Bible college not knowing a soul. Gary only knew like very few people, maybe just one.
Yeah, I knew one, and he had ties to other friends.
Yeah,
came
so
later.
He was with the guy he knew who is his childhood best friend.
Yeah.
And a group of guys at the beach, and I was with a group of girls that I really met like that weekend. I think this was like day 2 or 3
Yeah,
of
it was
even
one of the
moving
first
in.
weekends.
Yeah. So we went to the beach to meet up with the guys because some of the upperclassmen, you could call them, the second or third semesters, like they knew each other. Anyway, so we went to this beach called 10,000 Steps Beach. It literally has like so many stairs to get to it. Going down's not that bad. Going up.
Yeah, we counted. There's not actually 1,000 steps or whatever it is, but
yeah. What is it? Like 1,000 Step Beach or 10,000 Step Beach? I think it's 1,000
steps.
Yeah. Okay.
But regardless.
Anyway.
Yeah.
The only time I went to that beach.
I think.
But.
Yeah.
So we rolled in, and Gary was on the beach with another guy, and we just introduced ourselves. Like, for context, I had just gotten out of a pretty serious relationship and was not looking for any kind of relationship at that point. And I was just trying to, like, dive deep into my walk with the Lord because I definitely was not in the most healthy relationship. Anyway, and just felt very lost, So, I didn't even really pay attention, like, oh yeah, the guys are cute, but it's not anything on my mind, and I know you had the same, like, oh yeah, it was like a group of 5 or 6 of us girls that just rolled in, but...
Don't let her lie to you, folks. She saw me, and she said, that's the one right there. First time.
If only that's how it went. So that was our first meeting, but we really didn't know each other at all. I don't think we said more than 5 words to each other, maybe our names, and that was about it. And then of course I got into a relationship with somebody else, and they were friends with Gary, and so I got to know Gary through that a little bit, but he also had a girl back home he was interested in, and so he wasn't looking. It was always just friendship. So we were friends for a while, and then at the time my boyfriend and I broke up, and we all had these like M1s that we would do service projects that you could say we did for credit in school. Everyone had them.
Yes.
And so mine was serving in the salad bar at the school lunch. Like, I was in there once a week. Anyway, after the breakup happened, Gary obviously knew about it because him and the guy were friends. And he came in and said, like, this was probably the first time, like, something maybe different about you clicked with me, but it wasn't in a romantic way necessarily. It was just like, that's who Gary is. Where you asked me, how are you doing? And I was like, oh, I'm okay. And like, you were like, no, but like, what did you say? You said...
So I walk in, I go to the salad bar, and then I wrap around and I see you. You have a hat on, mind you. I can tell you've clearly been struggling not to cry or have been crying. Like, you just had it on your face. You're wearing your emotions. And I said, how are you? And you said, I'm doing okay, or like, I'm doing fine. And I said, are you doing okay, or are you doing Calvary okay?
Or CCBC
yeah, CCBC okay.
Yeah,
was
that's
it,
what it was.
It was just like, are you putting on a face right now, or how are you actually doing?
Yeah.
Because you knew that I knew kind of thing.
Yeah, which is just the genuineness of who you are. And it really did mean a lot and went a long way, even in our friendship, because I knew how much you cared. And so, anyway, fast forward, that's still first semester. At the end of first semester, everyone goes home, but a group of the students, including Gary and I, decide to stay and work over the spring, or what was it?
It was winter.
Winter, yeah, that makes more sense. Winter, and we worked in the coffee shop together. And so we did training together, and we became really, really close. We had a group of people that we were close with. There was like 5 or 6 of us that would meet up every single night. I mean, you didn't have TV. We literally didn't have anything to do other than hang out and play Spicy Uno. And so we really got to know each other over that winter break. And a lot happened in that winter break. But at this point, I was in communication with my ex-boyfriend who had graduated from Bible college at this point and trying to figure things out. And we're basically doing long distance at this point. And so I was definitely not interested or wasn't giving it second thought if any interest came by, because that's just not who I am and not what I want to be about. So we were just friends, and one day you asked me to take you to the airport.
Yep.
And my friend was supposed to go with us, and last minute she bails on us, doesn't come, so it's just Gary and I all the way to the airport.
Everybody in church culture right now is like, how could you? Yeah. Alone.
Especially in a car. College. Yeah. And yeah, it wasn't supposed to be just us. We were supposed to have people, but I definitely wasn't about to just leave you hanging to go to the airport to fly home for Christmas.
Which I appreciate.
So we ended up going, and the entire time we just talked the whole way there about who we are and where we grew up. And like, obviously we already knew each other at this point, but that would, I say, be the first like real interaction we've had with each other, that it was like, man, like Gary is amazing, and whoever he ends up with is gonna be so lucky. And you know, I'm trying to set him up with my friends because I'm like, he's awesome. So I called my friend Maggie and I'm like, Maggie, you have to date Gary, he's the best. She's like, maybe you should date Gary.
Okay.
So all of this happens. Anyway, I'm gonna speed the details up because there is a lot of details in between, but basically,
before you do, I do want to clarify that after that interaction, we were acquaintances that turned friends, but that solidified the friendship for me.
Yeah.
On like, Taylor is a real friend.
Yeah.
Now, and that, I think that car ride set the tone for the rest of our friendship, which morphed into our relationship later. But yeah, I had the same thought of like, not interest necessarily, but like, man, Taylor's like awesome. Like, not, again, at the time it was not her, but it was someone like her maybe. Like, that's really cool, because I had just that first semester gone through. It wasn't a breakup because nothing was ever official, but it was just getting over things at home, letting go completely, moving forward with what I needed to focus on. Yeah. And that's where I was.
Yeah. So during the winter break, Gary's family flew out for New Year's or drove back with you, I guess.
Yeah, we bring my car.
Anyway, so I was supposed to hang out with my friend on New Year's, who ditched me again. The first time wasn't enough, I guess, but
hey, worked out in the end.
Yeah, so I ended up going to the cafeteria because I had no food. I'm never really one to go out on New Year's Eve and drive. Because you just never know who's drinking and driving. And anyway, so I went to the caf to just see what kind of food was there. And I genuinely was like, man, I wish I could just get a pizza right now because that sounds so good. And I really was feeling very lonely. Like, it was really hard for me that night. So walking to the cafeteria, I was just praying the whole time. And, anyway, context to this. Gary, I would go on these Walk with Jesus walks around the lake at Bible college, and Gary would slide into my DMs and be like, I just love this, or amen, sister. Can you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And then when you were in Oklahoma for Christmas, you messaged me to check in. It's like all those little things over time now make sense to how our friendship got to where it was and who we are now, you know? Anyway, so I'm walking to the caf, and I walk in and Gary's there with his whole family and some of our mutual friends, and they're playing spicy Uno, and they're eating pizza. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what a blessing this is. And they're like, Taylor, oh my gosh, you should come play with us, like come hang out. And I was like, are you sure? And they're like, yeah, come sit, come hang out, like we're playing spicy Uno, have some pizza. And I was just like, you guys don't even know like what a blessing this is to me, because of how lonely I felt in that moment. And at this point I did still have a boyfriend, and so being away from him on New Year's was hard, and then just having my friendship ditch me. And yeah, so it was just so fun. We had a great time. I got to know his family, and they were amazing. I fell in love with them instantly. And so I walked away from that just being like, gosh, I'm just so thankful. And his family.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, post that event or that moment, I walked my family back to the dorm they were staying at. And they were all like, listen, man, we know Taylor's like with some guy or whatever, but if not her, then someone like her. We just love her and we think she's awesome, and that someone like her is a good fit for you one day. Kind of the mentality they took, because I was obviously trying to be above board and stuff like that. Like, like there's nothing there. But they were like, she's awesome. I was like, I know.
Love them. And they really made a point to include me and make me a part of things. So they asked me to go to dinner with them, and not just me and the fam, but like Daniel was there and some other people. My friend that ditched me came.
Yeah.
Anyway, so at the dinner, I think that's when I kind of got this hint of like, okay, his family really likes me. And I do think, looking back now, that was maybe the time when I started to be like, maybe Gary has feelings for me, but it was never anything like, I just assumed your family just really liked me, you know? Because, and now knowing your dad, that's so your dad. Yeah. Like, to make a point to say hi to the people he is fond of. So, yeah, so that happened. And then after New Year's, I went to Nashville to see one of my best friends, and I saw my boyfriend while I was there, and he and I just were not on the same page about a lot of different things, and it was clear on that trip things were not going to work from both my end and his end, and we ended up breaking up. It's like the long story short. And yeah, so that was definitely a learning experience for me. And when we broke up, it was like the first time I felt like I could admit to someone, like, I have all these feelings for Gary and I don't know what to do with them. And obviously I'm leaving out a lot of details, but in between New Year's and our friend's wedding that we went to at the end of January, did I even say that? I don't think I did. Anyway, we all kind of met up at our friend's wedding the end of January in Northern California, and our Bible college was in Southern California. So, yeah, we basically broke up right when I got back from that trip. And I remember calling my best friend Alicia up, and I was like, I need you to meet me right now. Like, they all knew me and the guy broke up, and she of course came right away. And I was just like, I think I have feelings for Gary. And she was like, you think? She's like, yeah, we all knew this. Like, knew it's good that you're finally catching up to this. Yeah. And it was like this first, like, okay moment. But I definitely was like, I'm not ready to jump into a relationship by any means. I got out of this serious relationship before Bible college. I came to Bible college to dig deeper with the Lord, and then I got into another relationship, which was not the wisest decision. And I was just like, I know I have all these feelings, but if it's meant to be, it'll be eventually. That doesn't mean it has to happen now. spoiler alert, that didn't last long.
Yeah. If I can paint some context. So, not the night that my family was like, Taylor's awesome. But, I'm trying to think. It was probably close to, because that was New Year's, right? It's probably close to like 2 or 3 weeks after that. And I don't remember the definitive moment, but it was when my spark of intrigue and interest started like ruminating in my head. Mm-hmm. And the first thought was, oh God, please take any of these emotions that I'm having towards this person away. Because I wanted to always be above board, and I never wanted to give anyone the wrong idea that I had false motives or anything like that. Especially because you were still in the middle of traversing through some things.
Traversing.
You were, at the time, like still figuring some stuff out. Mm-hmm. And the day that I heard of the breakup, Daniel, who has been referenced so far, he didn't grab me by the scruff of my collar, but he just looked at me in the face and said, don't do anything stupid.
Which is his best friend. Just
like a good friend should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because obviously he knew, and like I said, you and my ex were friends at that point, and so it was just a pickle.
This was.
But anyway, so yeah, I mean, I started to just really dive deep in my prayer life and my Bible life, and it wasn't long before like we just kept getting closer, and I mean, it didn't help that our whole friend group was just together all the time, 24/7. So
all
it's not like
friends.
Yeah, it was kind of like right there in front of your face every time. And yeah, I remember we had Gary's birthday, and then we went to the movies. Well, we went to Olive Garden. We sat away from each other at Olive Garden, and then we went to the movies to see Maze Runner 3, and we
so random.
Sat next to each
Still
other.
haven't seen the second one. I saw the first one, but
or maybe it was 2. I don't know.
It was 3.
I don't even know, because we didn't watch the movie. We just talked the entire movie. And the next day I went into work at the coffee shop, and one of our coworkers looked at me and she was like, okay, I just have to ask you, like, are you still with your ex? And I was like, no, I just don't want to say his name, just out of respect for him.
Absolutely.
I was like, no, we broke up actually, like, a couple weeks ago, or whatever it was at that point. I don't think it was very long. She's like, oh, thank goodness, because you and Gary need to get married. You guys are perfect for each other. And so our whole co-workers, all of them were talking about it and already had planned that they wanted us to get together. And all of our friends wanted it. Like, everyone was like, this makes sense. Anyway, so, yeah, that kind of, I think, just kick-started us really talking. And we started, like, at that point, we still didn't even have each other's number. Like, if we wanted something, we would just text each other on Instagram.
Yeah. Yep.
And at that point, I think I gave you my number. That sounds more accurate than you giving me your number at that point.
Or asking for your number. Heavens no. I was way too scared to ever ask for a girl's number, for sure.
So I think I gave you my number, and we just started texting, and I mean, we were together during the day, and you would send me a prayer every night. And yeah, so I remember talking to my roommates and being like, he has to like me, because nobody would go through this much trouble if they didn't like me. But Gary never actually told me he liked me.
Yeah.
So after this chapel, so his birthday was on, like, his birthday party was like a Friday, and then we had Sunday night chapel, and we had our Sunday night chapel. And honestly, I couldn't even tell you what the message was about now.
It was on the jealousy of God.
That's right.
I remember that because I was like, that's why I felt the need to talk to you.
Yeah.
Was the concept was just like, God's jealous for us first and foremost. And I'm like, all right, if I'm going to lay out how I feel, like, I want there to be this understanding that even if I feel this way, I want to put first priorities first.
Yeah.
Before whether you felt the same way or not.
Yeah.
I was just like, I have to tell her.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, you have to say something tonight. And that's where I was at.
So after this chapel, Gary comes up to me and he's like, can I talk to you? I was like, yeah, sure. So we went and talked, and this was like a quick conversation because we have dorm meetings right after Sunday night chapel, so it wasn't like we had a ton of time. So we went over to like the outside cafeteria place, and Gary basically said everything but I like you. And I walked away from that like so giddy, and all my roommates were like, what just happened? Tell us everything. Mind you, like this is still like only a couple weeks after my breakup.
Well, and also it's like semester's just starting.
Yeah.
So your dorm mates are like, it's first night, like what's happening? Like, yeah.
Yeah. So
and without the context behind, without the context behind, like they were probably just confused. Or
no, this would have been like a little bit into the semester.
Okay. Maybe I have the dates mixed up then, but regardless.
I don't know. Maybe so. I have no idea. I don't remember. Anyway, so yeah, I left that conversation be like, okay, we had agreed, like, we definitely like each other. Well, you didn't say that, but that's what we basically were talking about is we like each other, but maybe right now is not the right timing to start dating.
Yeah.
But we want to continue to pursue friendship with each other and seek wisdom from other people in this situation. So, from that point, I honestly, this is where it kind of gets blurry for me a little bit.
So,
because then we started talking and hanging out, and we started.
I was basically going around like. Not telling every guy, but telling quite a few dudes that I knew, like, dude, like, you know, just the generic questions, how can I pray for you, like, that kind of stuff, or, like, how's it going, like, I'm, like, not in love, because I wouldn't say that yet, but I was definitely, like, I am feeling a certain way about Taylor, and I'm trying to be very strong, and, just if you just like pray for that, or if you could just check in, you know, that kind of thing, because only a certain amount of guys knew at the time, but a lot of people were inquiring because they did see us hang out.
I mean, a lot of people picked up on it pretty quick. Yeah, I mean,
it's not like we tried to hide anything, because at the time we were talking, but it wasn't any more than that.
Yeah.
But they didn't have the context, again, of the friendship we already had for the past 8 months.
Yeah.
That had morphed over time. And so, basically, everything came to a head, and we decided to have a conversation. And then the definitive conversation was we met in the the infamous cafeteria, and we sat down, and we swapped the Christian terminology as testimony, or when you first made like your statement of faith, and then basically from that point on, like life story.
Yeah.
So all the way from like in the beginning of Gary's life and in the beginning of Taylor's life, all the way up to this moment, which is again such a beautiful moment, because whether or not, and this might be the first bit of like advice, because this is kind of why I wanted to get into it, wasn't necessarily again to say we have the answers, but this is what we did. We opened up about our struggles. We opened up about where we were, where we wanted to grow, and kind of basically did like a, here's who I am, you know. And then we
wanted to go into everything with my past relationships. Like, I wanted to go into it knowing there was, context is like Gary had never been in a relationship before. He'd never kissed a girl. He's never done anything. Like, he literally was just like, I have no idea. So Gary, was the one who really pursued this, in us sitting down and sharing testimonies and really just opening up before we jumped into a relationship with each other, which some people might disagree with that, but for us it worked well because we wanted to know what we were getting into, because we knew if we got in a relationship, we most likely were going to end up getting married, and we didn't want to pursue a relationship if we knew right off the bat it wasn't going to work. Like,
Yeah.
we wanted to make sure that if we walked away from our relationship at any point, we were on the same page of, like, it's okay. It just didn't work, you know? Because I don't think every Christian boy and Christian girl should be together. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I forgot. I mean, but that's what I mean is, like, in between that and dating,
so
it was such a blur.
Yeah, so we did that, and then we agreed from that meeting, and this is the beauty of having the same friend group for the most part, is you would agree to talk with the fellas, and I would agree to talk with the ladies, prospectively. Obviously, this is all in public places, no, like, weird things happening on the side or anything like that. Just friends asking other friends, like, what do you guys think about this if we were to pursue it?
Yeah.
Because we wanted to get a lot of counsel. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in counsel. Mm-hmm. And the beautiful part about our friends, too, that I still respect and love to this day, is they will tell you how it is.
Yep.
And they don't hold back. And so I got a lot of the affirmations and some of the reservations, you know, which I appreciated. And I know the same was for you. And it was after that process, I think we called my parents, kind of explained what we were going to do. And then on March 6th, we started dating of 2018.
Yeah. So, and Gary, you know, asked my dad if he could date me, which is very unusual
and that's
for my family.
That's the first time I met your family, too.
My sisters were all listening in the other room.
They were in the kitchen.
Yeah, they were just dying. And, you know, he called my ex-boyfriend to explain the situation and tell him, not ask permission by any means, but let him know. And he responded very well to it. I think he saw it coming himself, even from a long distance.
Yeah.
It was clear that there was something between us. It just, I think, for everyone else saw it before we saw it, maybe. In some ways. But
again, the fundamental reason why I told him was, again, not because I owed it to him.
Yeah.
But because I thought it was the right thing to do.
Out of respect for him and...
Well, and at the time, we were closer friends enough for me to be like, dude, I don't want you to hear it from anyone else but from me first.
Yeah.
I don't want you to hear some weird version of it. I want you to hear what actually happened and what is happening.
Yeah.
Because it's not fair in my mind to pursue this and you finding out
on
in a way
Facebook
or from somebody else who might skew it.
Yeah, what it was.
Say
it wasn't ever anything crossover, nothing like that. Like, absolutely not. Yeah. So then from that point, we started dating in March. Mm-hmm. And we got engaged in October. Yep. I would say our dating was very straightforward. We were definitely learning a lot of things, but we had agreed to not kiss until the night before our wedding. That was our agreement, because I didn't want to kiss for the first time on our wedding day.
Which I'm so glad.
And we didn't even hold hands at first. We really took it slow.
Yeah.
So then, by the point we got engaged, you know, he could kiss me on the cheek and stuff like that, but we never kissed. And we could hold hands and stuff like that, but we were never really alone unless we were on a date or, you know, we set really strict boundaries on ourselves. Mind you, we were in Bible college, so there were already boundaries on us for Bible college.
We set the strict boundaries within the strict boundaries.
I think we would have set the same boundaries even if we were out of Bible college, because for me, I knew what was going to make me stumble, and I didn't want to do that. And for you didn't want to have your first kiss with someone who wasn't your wife or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, you had your own boundaries, I had mine, and so we just met in the middle with it.
Yeah, and I didn't want to encroach upon anything that you might struggle with, but because it was so new for me, all of it was a learning experience.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I was so idealistic about some things looking back, for the sheer fact that I was an innocent babe and lamb coming into it, just like, I've never done this before, so
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'm gonna try it because I think this sounds the best, and I think this is the wisest thing to do.
Yeah.
We can discuss it, and we'll go from there. And
I think it,
let's set the tone for
for
stuff.
us, made our marriage so much sweeter in the end.
I agree.
Because we were, like, we knew each other so well before we got married, and when we got married, we were able to enjoy those things fully for what they're supposed to be, not anything else. And
Absolutely.
so we got engaged in October, and then we didn't get married until the following August. So yeah, engagement was for sure the hardest season for us. Absolutely. There was a lot, I think, just being engaged and honestly being engaged for so long.
Yeah.
Even though it was only 10 months, like that.
Well, let's give
long for Bible college.
I was gonna say, let's give the
context.
ratio, because the Bible college ratio of like living and existing with people every single day, whereas you might see those people, even if you see them frequently, maybe twice a week. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There is like every single day, and so
we did everything together.
Yep.
We would go shopping together. The only thing we didn't do was live in the same place, like in the same room, and work together. And that, other than that, it was, we were together all the time. We have the same friends, so we were with our friends all the time, which I was so thankful for that. And I love and cherish that season of life so much. But it definitely made for some struggles. And I think when you're holding yourself to such strict boundaries and looking forward to being married with one another, having a longer engagement only adds to those struggles.
There's just tension.
Yeah.
And there's, again, learning. Like,
we had a lot of communication problems.
Yep. And going back to what I said earlier, a lot of the insecurities for me were definitely magnified, because whether it was a rational fear or not, the fear of, well, we're engaged, and so there's marriage on the horizon, but she could still leave me at any time, was a real fear that I had, and that I had to work through. And I was very jealous because I was insecure. It's amazing what false precepts and realities that fear creates on things that aren't even real. Yeah. And there was a lot of stuff that I was just struggling with. I like to tell people our engagement season set us up really well for marriage, in the sense that we fought so much in our engagement season that marriage seemed like a piece of cake when we finally got married. Honestly, still does in a lot of ways. It does, yeah. I think that whole first 2 years, you have this big quarrel and you just questioning everything. It's like, that's never happened. No, the whole honeymoon till you die, you know what I mean? Because for us, it's been such a rich and sweet thing. Not because we don't have our quarrels, not because we don't have our moments. Yeah. But I think engagement kind of loosened some of the kinks. For sure. That were there. Yeah. So we were engaged for 10 months and we got married in August of 2019. So we got engaged our third semester. So part of the reason why we waited 10 months was because we were graduating and we wanted to graduate Bible college first because we didn't want to derail what we were focused on at that time, which was getting our degrees. And then we had some other family things happening. And so we got married in August of 2019 after a long 10 months of engagement. And is this where you want me to stop? You want me to keep going? We can stop there. We've been married for 5 years. Yeah, we got. Yep. It's been awesome. I love every day. Yeah. Moved to Missouri 3 weeks after we got married. And that was a wild journey. It was a crazy first month of marriage, but it instantly, and I mean seriously for us, it was instantly was so much better than engagement season. I think there was just
so much like, especially from Gary's end, and I don't want to speak for you, but like, I don't want to lose her, I don't want to mess this up or whatever, that when we got married, it was just like, okay, I need to like just let go of all of those fears because that's not reality. And no matter how many times I said it, it wasn't going to click until we were married. But it was never, I mean, I say all of this and I feel like it was never anything to where we felt like it was too much for us to work through or not worth it for us to work through. It was just like, okay, we got to communicate better and we got to figure this out together. There was never a moment where I was like, this is not going to work and I need to get out. Like, I never felt that. And I'm thankful. Like, I didn't let your fears scare me off or
the consequences of those fears.
Yeah.
Right. Because often, people talk about...
I make it sound like we were fighting like all the time, but we really weren't.
No, it was
there were hard moments though.
Yeah, it was just like it's like a radar, like peaks that happening more frequent than they were for sure.
Yeah.
When we were dating, but it's to the callback to the other aspect that I'm so grateful for is that we did sit down and we swapped our life stories.
Yeah.
And we opened up about so much. Like,
so I knew where those were stemming from.
Exactly,
too.
And so you had the context and frame and the grace and the patience to deal with me when often the consequences of those insecurities were because of the association with the insecurities more than they were with the consequences.
Yeah.
Fundamentally. And so I think there's a lot of unpacking that I've had to do even in the course of our marriage as far as figuring out more of where things stem from. Mm-hmm. But that's just constant self-work that requires work, like diligence, to be mindful and to ask yourself what type of person do you want to be for yourself and for the person in your life. And not to tangent too far from the story, but that's an overarching of the story of how we got here. And so the next question after our story is what advice would you give to single individuals today? I'll let you talk for the ladies and I'll speak to the fellas real quick.
I mean, I think looking back on it now, just embracing that season, which I know everyone hears all the time, but it really is true. You don't realize what you have until it's gone. Not that I mean, I'm so thankful for my life and that I have you, but I do wish that past me would have embraced those moments more and found my self-worth in something other than relationships at that time. And so I think do the things you want to do and don't apologize for it to anybody and just follow what you want right now, because there is going to come a time, if you desire to be married, like that you are going to be married and you're going to be sharing your life with someone, which is so beautiful and sweet, but you are thinking about another human being at all times, and then you add children into it and it just packs on.
Exactly.
And so while you can, in the most unselfish, selfish way, think about yourself and what you want and your desires and embrace those and go after those in your season of waiting for the right person would be my advice.
I think that's huge because it really is the perspective shift of it's not even losses, it's the Thomas Sowell quote of there are no solutions, just trade-offs. Mm-hmm. And so you're making the appropriate trade-offs for the priority in your life, which is that relationship. Because fundamentally, to act in a way that is loving someone is to say to them, I'm committed exclusively to you at the expense of all other relationships. Even the friendships sometimes, because it's more important to sustain this than it would be to sustain that. Granted, I'm a huge proponent of prospective genders having mutually exclusive nights.
Yeah.
I think that's healthy.
For sure.
You need your girls and I need my guys.
Yeah, for sure.
And we do communal type stuff as well. Like Absolutely. We host game nights here and and we have life group with our church and things of that nature. But if I could speak to the fellas, this podcast is all about the maximization of self. And there's 5 areas that I talk about that pretty relentlessly. And that's your physical domain. So to pursue the best possible health, strength, physical capacity that you could attain. Your finances and resources. So to accumulate a career path if you can. Or find your calling or whatever you want to call it. Your purpose. Something that gives you the drive and ambition that you can focus on something and do it really well. And potentially make money and an earning for yourself and hopefully one day a family. And also learn to allocate your time really well. Find the things in your life that you spend the most time on because those are your priorities or the things that you have prioritized. From there, analyze your social groups. Who are the people that you surround yourself with the most? Who are the people that are your friends? And who are the people that you want to be like? Or even in your media and stuff like that. Who are the people that you take as mentors? If you don't have good mentors in your life, who are the people you listen to and aspire to be like? And then in your learning and your behavior, remember to apply knowledge through experience because you're going to gain more of understanding through experience and just trying stuff and just jumping in there instead of having a fearfulness of just learning something and saying, oh yeah, I know about that concept. But it's until you get down to the nitty gritty, do you actually understand what it's about? And then the foundation of those things is your spiritual formation because you have a real relationship with God. You have a faith and a devotion to Him that's not just because your spouse does, not just because your community does. You are trying to orient yourself in a life that when you read something in Scripture that is calling you to be not just morally better, but to be more of what you were intended to be. To ask yourself those deep questions and to be real. If you're not close with God or there's a chip in your faith or something like that, I heard someone say this today, ask yourself what happened. Mm-hmm. Get real. And other than those 5 things, because it's so easy to remember, right? Remember that you are never going to regret actually telling the truth or saying what's on your mind. And if people don't like it, it's okay. Because you were being honest. Because what would they have rather you have done? Lied? And so if you can be a person, there's a quote that says, the naked man fears no pickpocket. An open man and an open person, male or female, doesn't have to worry about what people think about them because they're gonna know. And you, yes, can learn to be temperate with your speech, and yes, can understand your context and things of that nature and learn how to love people well with your words. But start by telling the truth. And even before that, stop lying. Mm-hmm. Just tell the truth. Even if you're wrong and everybody thinks that you're wrong, at least you were honest. And so those would be my things for individual guys. Anything else you'd like to add on that? Oh, the final thing on that is because if you pursue all those things and to become that type of man, then you'll attract the right type of woman. Mm-hmm. What is your ideal date night?
Ooh, interesting.
Let's make it more interesting. What's your ideal, okay, you're married now, you're established in your relationship, and then if you were recommending to the single individuals again, first date.
Oh, it's past 9, so I'm getting tired. Oh man, I don't know because I like a lot of different date nights. I think I don't love going to the movies for date nights because I want to talk. So I mean
it's a good background noise if you want to talk in a movie. So we did.
Yeah. I guess that's true.
I'm just being
That's so
facetious.
Yeah, I think my ideal date night is someone being intentional with picking it out. I don't think I really care what we do, as long as there's food involved that I like, and intentionality. Like, if the person, like, so if you, obviously, you framed it for the single ladies, that's why I was saying it that way, but
all the single ladies.
If you were to plan a date night and be intentional about it, and like, even if it's an at-home date or whatever it might be, if there's food and then some kind of, like, you put effort into it, activity, I'm about it. I think it's great. Like, we've gone mini golfing. I love that. We just go to a restaurant and sit down, and I don't mind that,
Sensory deprivation tank.
We did that once.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's all about just being intentional. For me. Yeah. I don't have, like, this ideal, this would be an amazing, I wish every date looked like this. Like, I don't know.
Well, not to get, like, too behind the curtain or the scenes, but the reason I asked this question is for that reason. It's like, it doesn't have to be this cut and dry template. It's to pull the principle out of, like, hey guys, listen to what a woman is saying that she wants. She wants intentionality. She wants you to actually try. Yeah. She wants good food. And she wants to be known in that time.
Seen, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say that pretty much the same on the guy side, because, well, guys can't express their emotions, and be vulnerable, but the same thing as far as, like, do something that you're going to enjoy. Because what do you have to lose by being yourself? And if the person, if you're single and you're going out on a first time date, do something that's going to make the woman feel safe. I think safety is really important. And so be in a public place, and you don't even have to be facing each other, because I know sometimes sitting in a booth and that kind of thing can be a little awkward and a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Be a little just forward, just having to, like, make the situation work. So maybe if you're at a park bench with a coffee, or you go on a walk, or you sit and meet at like a bar.
Yeah.
So I just have 2 more questions.
Okay.
Go from there. What is the best rom-com?
I don't know. The best rom-com? I have no idea. I really like all the rom-coms. I really like The Duff.
Okay.
That one's funny and cute, Like, he loves her for who she is. I love that. And it's a funny movie.
It is. It's been a while since we watched that one.
It's been a while, yeah. I really like Another Cinderella Story. Classic.
Which one's the best?
I don't know if that one's a rom-com. I think it is. Pretty in Pink. That's an oldie.
Okay. Yep.
I do love that movie, though. The Holiday for Christmas time. That's a good one. Or The Last Holiday. I like both of those.
Gotcha.
What are you thinking of?
Oh, I have my own, but they're not in the same category as rom-com. There's Hot Rod.
No, that's not rom-com.
I know. Babe. Listen. There's Nacho Libre.
Those are not.
Listen. And then 10 Things I Hate About You.
Oh, I do love that movie.
One's great.
Or Never Been Kissed. That one's really good, too.
That one.
Yeah, we have watched that one together.
Oh, gotcha.
It's about the reporter that goes back to high school.
I genuinely don't remember.
Oh my gosh.
It's been a while.
Whatever.
But yeah, I think 10 Things I Hate About You would be.
I do. That is a great movie.
The only
we gotta watch that one again.
Though that like sets Nacho Libre apart.
Don't even start with
is because it's based on a true guy. Okay, there's an actual monk who wrestled for the orphans.
Moving on.
Amazing.
ridiculous.
Good toast.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Final question is, how can you improve all of your relationships?
Just an easy question.
Yeah.
How can
Nice
you
send-off.
improve all your relationships? I think it goes back to the question at the beginning of what I think the 3 best qualities for a healthy relationship, right? That's what it was.
Yep.
I think having communication, making sure Jesus is at the center of it, and like willing to serve or considering your partner is, what was the question? Is
How can you improve all of your relationships?
the ways to improve. The goal, anyway.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I would say those 2.
Yeah, I think I would leave it with, well, at least theologically, if Jesus is source. One thing I thought about doing, again, even though it's so cliche and overutilized, is reviewing the love chapter. I think it's 1 Corinthians 13. Defining what love is.
Yeah.
Because if you can define what love is, you can learn how to habitualize it in your life, where you fall short on it, and how to be better. And I think doing that and continuing to communicate honestly and well are going to be at least 2 of the foundational key elements. Because it's so crucial to learn what love is to love well. And I know that's so simple-minded to say that and so straightforward. But really, like, if you're going to strive to actively, selflessly sacrifice for people, learning what the definition of what that is and what that looks like is the key to figuring out why this existence is the way that it is, why human relationships the way that they are, why even the cosmos, on a physics scale, everything is interacting with each other. And so, I think defining love before you act on love is super critical and crucial.
Yeah.
I think that's going to improve all your relationships as well. At least in a healthier sense.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you for coming on.
You're
I
welcome.
hope that this provides a lot of value for everyone who hears it. And if nothing else, you and I just got to have another lovely conversation. And I look forward to many more. And I love you very much.
I